Hello, everybody, and welcome to another video that I'm going to be featuring a thought leader here with us in our customer service champions. And welcome today, Steve DiGioia. He's a customer service trainer, coach, and author and speaker. Steve, welcome. We're delighted to have you in another training video and dialogue here about customer service.
Thank you very much, Tal. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
That's great. Steve is in New Jersey, and he had some warm weather, which is unusual for New Jersey. But now I think the snow is coming back, right?
Exactly. We had some snow and ice a few days ago, and I was out there shoveling, just like the old days.
He's very familiar with that. Well, let me give a quick introduction. Every month, we're going to have a dialogue and a conversation with Steve about customer service topics, the trends and the things that, as a leader, you want to be a leader of excellence in your field. So we're going to be talking about some topics for several months that's going to give us some insights and perspectives, some ideas to take back to your organization to create a level of excellence around your team and your leadership that really customer service is at the heart of every business that can win and more customer loyalty. So just a brief introduction for Steve here is Steve DiGioia is a customer service trainer, coach, author, and speaker, as I mentioned. He has a 20-plus years of experience in hospitality industry to help companies and their employees find their unique ways to be successful and provide anticipatory service their customers desire, where there's a need for improvement, increased productivity, service skills training, and enhanced management development, which is Steve is very familiar with. He comes from a very strong training background in many hospitality, both on the restaurant side and the hotel side. And we kind of share the same DNA of hospitality, so you're going to be learning about that as you watch the video. But he's got some interesting articles. He's featured on many hospitality leading websites and magazines such as Biz Catalyst 360, Hotel F&B Observer Magazine, and Age Syndicate Network, Hospitality Net, and Hotel News Resources. Great guy to be talking with today, as we are going to start off to talk to you guys about what does it take to be a leader of excellence for 2017. Obviously, we started a new year, and I know many people are energized about starting new, a clean slate. But let's talk to Steve and then have a conversation with Steve. Steve, we share several years in hospitality, and we talked the other day about how hospitality really is the core. I mean, if there's any industry that is the competitive advantage is about service. Yep. That's what it's about. So what do you think, first of all, before we start into the leadership aspect of it, what do you think about how hospitality has shaped customer service for in so many industries and hospitality in itself?
Well, I think what it comes down to as the core mindset that you need on the hospitality side. It's very different than a freestanding business or, of course, anything that you do online, which there is no real direct interaction. When you walk into a hotel, at least a quality hotel, I mean the brand quality hotel, I mean a quality level hotel.
Yes.
Plenty of those also, they do a wonderful job. You're walking into not only somebody's business, but the mindset is you're walking into my home. When you come into the hotel, there is a responsibility that we have to do more than just give you a clean room, give you a beautiful looking atrium, a hotel lobby, and nice restaurants. The hospitality industry is one that was built on, you're coming to my house. If I invite you to my house for dinner, of course, there was a whole bunch of things that I will need to do prior to you arriving, which is that anticipatory service. But at the same time, when you come here, I'm not just going to do whatever you need to satisfy you, because I wouldn't do that to my family coming to my house. I'm going to do everything that I can to make you feel special, make you feel that I appreciate you being there. And the companies out there that are the best in the customer service field, the Zappos, the Southwest Airlines, the Amazons. Now, even if they're an online business like Amazon, they do things within the sales process, within the purchase process, that makes you feel much more than just a number. because they're dealing with, number one, the websites are designed to keep you informed every step of the way. They get back to you with tracking codes. They get back to you with ways of adapting your order, editing your order, and ways of finding out where you are within that process. As opposed to years ago, you place an order and now it's online and you just wait for the mailman to come to your house. All the other business that tried to work as a hospitality industry use that mindset. They do what they can to wrap their arms around you, because that's what we do when you step foot in someone's hotel. And so the companies and the businesses that have really succeeded over the last 5, 6, 10 years, I believe, have taken a very different mindset of service, one that we've been trying to do from the first days of when Mr. Hilton was making a name for himself.
Right,
And
right,
I think that's where we need to be.
right. And it's such a, when we're thinking about hospitality, many of us who work in the field, we have an obligation, as you said, because it is about that experience that many customer service industries are now honing in on. They're interested in welcoming you to the business and greeting you and making you feel very important as a customer, but also the journey begins there. And then you go through the experience. You have so many touch points. You can be in banking, you can be in healthcare, or restaurant. I mean, I feel that there's so many great opportunities with restaurants nowadays where many owners are establishing new places, new restaurants, but really the element of service is so key. What do you think about that? You come from a strong training background on the restaurant side. What do you think about that?
I did a training once in one hotel. This is probably about 5 years ago. And it was all food and beverage people, banquet, from the banquet department, from the restaurants, from room service. And I asked them a question and they floored me in a bad way with their answer. I was speaking about service and speaking about, you know, when you go to a restaurant, would you rather go to a restaurant that gives you top-notch food, but the overall service and the overall experience is poor? Or would
Hmm.
you rather go to a restaurant where they take care of you as if you're family, make you feel so warm and welcome, but the food is average? And all the hands went up, and most people were saying, I want to go to a place where the food was great. Now, these were from restaurant people and it in a hotel. And that floored me, because that is a perfect example of why, in my opinion, service has changed within the industry. Well, we are, today's, whether you're millennials, Gen X's, who cares what the scenario is? Everything is this Twitterization, as I call, of society. Everything is expected to this instant gratification. People aren't looking to sit and dine anymore. They're not looking to have a long, drawn out service. And that's the reason why all the, I don't mean fast food, the McDonald's or so, but where the themed restaurants, which they give you a relatively inexpensive meal, quick service, have done so well, because the mindset is changing of employees. And that may be great for the younger generation, but people that are 40 plus, and there's of course plenty of us, maybe not you, Tal, but there's plenty of us,
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I know. Uh, they still desire, they expect to be taken care of, because they're from a generation where that's the only way it was done. And so if we're going to go and just try to treat all of our service points, steps of service, as what the millennials expect, or in this quick service, we're going to alienate a whole group of people that are also people that potentially are in a different financial standpoint. They should be a little bit more well off, so they have the more money to spend. They have a circle of people who are similar to where they are, that can bring more business in based on recommendations from an older generation, which people tend to respect. And so you want to speak about service excellence. I think we have to realize, who are we focusing our service on? Are we focusing it just on people that want that quick 1-2 hit and get out and come back again tomorrow, hopefully? Or do we want it to the people that have desired a certain level of service from all these years, and that's the only way that they know? there is a balance there, and maybe we can have two different market segments, or the companies that have different brands within their company. You know, you have one, a hotel or a restaurant or a full service type of a store, as opposed to a quick service type of a store where that you just pick your items up off the shelf. But once we are pigeonholing our service into this works for this type of clientele, we're leaving a whole bunch of money on the table. And that's where people like us will have to come in and try to bring everybody back to realize, who are you here to service? Everyone, or just a small little section of people? And so what my big job was at that property was to try to change the mindset from all these food and beverage people that may be taking care of a 60-year-old couple, you know, on their 30th wedding anniversary, and make them feel just as special as two 25-year-old ladies, men, couples that are out for a basic dinner. Because no matter who you are, it's our job to make you feel special when you walk into my place of business.
Yeah, it's great that as you share that, speaking of McDonald's, one leader that is a leader of excellence is Ray Kroc. Actually, one of the founders actually was McDonald's brothers that actually founded McDonald's. But Ray Kroc took McDonald's to what it is years and years before they became a powerhouse. But one of his things that we talk about restaurants, Steve, is that he was very, talk about excellence. He wanted, I think it was what they call quality, service, and cleanliness. That was his trademark when he was training these franchisees with their restaurants. He wanted to standardize all of the things with McDonald's and to go nationwide. And he thought very systematically. He thought about, how do I create, if there's 5 McDonald's, I want to make sure that 500 McDonald's do the same thing. But he was like one of the earliest pioneers, and I really love his entrepreneurial spirit. And that's something, as an audience, this is a great case study for you if you're in the hospitality field. Ray Kroc was one of the first pioneers in the restaurant business to hone in on quality, service, and cleanliness. Now, you think about this today, I think that especially fast food restaurants, it's definitely not there. So be thinking about whether you have a franchise or you're working for, or no matter what restaurant you're working on, if you combine those 3 things, I think that would lead to something that you can take pride in and your employees can take pride in. Because, I mean, you may have, I think, kind of alluding to what Steve is talking about, you can have the best french fries in the world, but if everything else does not jive in that experience. And I know all of us are, yes, we do have that microwave mentality that we want things fast and we want them quick and all these kind of things. But, people also tend to appreciate the experience. And I think that that's very important. So, Steve, let's dive into that leadership aspect of it. And especially, you and I share the training aspect of it, training managers, training leaders in the hospitality business for many years. Where do you see any changes in how we're leading people in the hospitality and customer service nowadays?
Well, so much more is done, and depending on the company, so much more is done outside of the classroom. I come from where your training was done, either you're sitting in a classroom style, with
Right.
10, 20, 50 people, and you're being taught service skills, expectations, whatever the training was about. Nowadays, it's very difficult to do that. And having your employees be able to all together go within one particular room to have this training for an hour, for 3 hours, for 2 days, whatever it is, very hard to do. So many learning management systems that companies are adopting, they're going for all online, whether it's through a webinar, whether it's you just click on at your convenience a particular training class, and you learn that at your convenience. Once it's complete, you move on to the next one. So training is being done very differently. And people from that have done this in the old-fashioned way, it's very different. I wish I would like to have that constant feedback, because just like speaking to somebody over the phone is very different than speaking with somebody in person. Same thing on an email. You can say the exact same words Two different ways with a totally different interpretation of it. So same thing, when I am teaching you something, when I am showing you, when I'm sharing whatever knowledge and information I have, I can tell by the look in your face, by your body language, if you get it, if you see the value in it. Because if you look at, yeah, that doesn't really matter. I'm going to change what I need to do, as opposed to having somebody sit in front of a computer screen for a half hour during their lunch break to learn this one item. Very different. And that is where just training for the sake of training doesn't change people's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people will think, well, go out there and train. You need to do better training. You need to develop this. No, the best training in the world is useless if, number one, it's not measured, if it's not surrounded by an entire organization that understands it, that believes it, and that goes through it itself. How many times have you been in training where the department manager is not even in the same training because he or she is too busy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've dealt with that over the years. Where's Joe? Where's Mr. So and So? Well, you know, he can't come to the training. Well, at that point, I want to walk out the door at that stage because I need to not only make sure that the manager has the same training, because that way he or she understands what has been told or trained to the employees, but I want each and every employee to realize, wait a minute, this is supported by my boss. And I have to do what I am being asked to do, or I want to do what I'm being asked to do, because I just learned some great tips and tactics. But unless it's supported by the entire group, unless the mindset is there from the most senior levels, training is not. It's not. You don't get the end result just from sitting in the classroom. So training is changing much over the years, and I like that person to person. Stand by my side. Let me show you how to do it, and now you go and do it. Because then I can give you that immediate feedback right now. You're not judged on it 3 months down the road when you get some evaluation card. And that's why I like that hands-on, one-to-one type of training as well.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you. I think that especially being on the field, one of the main responsibilities I have is training. But I've noticed, here's what I've noticed, especially with the millennials, things are different because we do live in a shorter attention span right now, more than any other time. So those quick bites, we use the huddle format, which the Ritz-Carlton started many years ago with their stand-up or pre-shift huddle of going over those training things. But I think you're hitting on a good point here. This is what's something, if you guys are in a leadership position, there's a couple of things that I took away from Steve there is that,
I should have given
you know,
back, okay?
well, there's one is that you have to be the leader by example. So if you're
Mhm.
saying that you're training people and you're saying that you're developing people and you're saying that you're adding value, well, that has to be part of your leadership. Has changed in a way that we are becoming the coaches, we're becoming the trainers, we're becoming versatile and agile in our responsibility. And what you talked about there was, look, I can give you. I think this is what's happening to a lot of leaders. They understand it intellectually, but when it comes down to the hands-on, one of the reasons that I think hospitality and customer service operations are successful is because they understand that it's a very hands-on environment, and you can't stay too long in the classroom because those ideas won't flourish, as you say. Ideas are great, but if we're not executing. The other day, I had a really great definition of a vision. It was by Thomas Addison. Some of you may have heard this definition, but he said, vision without execution is hallucination.
Very good, very good.
And I said, well, so much for those ideas that are staying in the classroom. We've got to execute those ideas, which is
Sure,
exactly
sure.
what you're sharing there. And Steve, do you have any maybe a story to share when it comes to that? How can it really unfold? Maybe a manager or leader in your organizations or so forth that really hone in those, and maybe an example of a leader of excellence. What do you think?
Oh, sure. Oh, let me go back many years. I was working for Hilton. It was a huge property. It was the largest property here in New Jersey. Um, most number of square footage. And I had one employee who was this was within the banquet department, and she was one of the banquet captains. They were separate who took care of just the corporate meetings and who would take care of all the other events. It was a union property, and so there are some differences in how you have to manage with union employees because there's a legal contract that you have to abide by. That creates some challenges at times. And this one employee, I knew she was a great employee, but sometimes it was let me focus on what my needs are, meaning the employee prior, but before focusing on what the customers need. She had some medical issues, so she had to go out. She was out of work for about 9 months or so. She came back, and I welcomed her back because she was a wonderful employee. So now she has said, Steve, my life has changed a lot. I'm looking at things very differently. What can I do to improve? What can I do to get better within the company and learn more myself? Great. I stood up because I was hoping I can get something like this from her.
There you go.
It's like, so she just handed it to me on a plate at that point. So she was already a banquet captain, so she understood supervisory roles. She understood expectations. So at that point now, what I would physically do is walk her through the property and pretend we were a customer. Because what her job was, she was setting up, as you know, the meeting space and all for the large events that we would do, and we would regularly do events for 1,000 people plus. And so there's so much work involved that you tend to focus on how much silverware do you need, how many tables do you need. You know, you forget about the little things because when the customer comes in the door, even before they open the door to the room, they're looking at the cleanliness of the space. What kind of
Mhm.
little white specks are on the carpet? Is there foot scuffs on the door? And
Right.
when you come in, the linen is that clean. And I started showing her so many things because that's what I look as a manager. I knew my staff could do certain things fantastically, but I wanted to see what would the customer think of. So I started a whole different way of training her from the customer's point of view because she had the skill set. And at that stage, I started seeing her bring that same level of attention, that same change of mindset to the events that she did and how she would start training her people that she was directly supervising. And that was one of the first things that really led that particular department at that time to get the couple of awards that we did get through Hilton, because once you get the buy-in from your staff, once they understand why you're doing something, not just because you have to do it, not because the boss said so, or there's some policies and procedures you have to follow.
Right. Right.
Once they see the benefit of it, then anything is possible. And what had turned out that after I left that property, I was there for about 2.5 years. But a year later, she wound up taking my position as the lead of that department. And it was wonderful to see a nice progression from someone that was kind of jaded at one point.
Hmm.
And once their mindset was being open to change and was willing to learn something new, how her track and her progression just really took off. It was wonderful.
And I bet you feel very inspired by that.
That's why we do it. I remember when I first started in the hotel industry, I had 2 days training, out of which it was they held you by the hand, literally and figuratively, and they walked you around to the property. They introduced you to as many people as they could. You didn't remember any of the names. They gave you a whole bunch of manuals and procedures and policies, and then 2 days later, okay, Steve, there you go. Okay, now it's my first hotel. It's one thing if 20 years down the road you know the job, you can move into it. So it's really nice when I'm able to go and take people and provide the training to them that I may not have received, because it helps them. It helps that light bulb goes off in their head, and it's so nice to see when somebody can take your ideas, your knowledge, and whatever expertise you may have gained, and they can put that into effect and see how it not only make them better, but have the experience that they can provide for their customers. What a difference that makes for everybody involved, and it's a great feeling. That's why we do it. If not, because training is very frustrating at times, and if we
Yep.
don't enjoy the benefits of it, it doesn't make sense. But I'm going to keep going because it's the best part of my day when I'm actually in a training opportunity. It's fantastic.
Great. I think that would be a great topic for our follow-up video cast for us is how do we develop those people in those hospitality positions that are supervisory level lead
Mm,
positions in their business, and then
sure,
they really want to grow and become. I know that when I started out my career, I was lucky early on. It was funny because I get lucky early on to be around mentors and leaders, just like as yourself, as you mentioned, that they believe and their actions speak louder than words in terms of the training aspect of it. They knew how important it was, and our industry actually had a little bit more dollars for the budget on training, which we not always have nowadays. So a different scenario
sure,
economically, but I
sure.
think that. You're right. I think there's some great opportunities for us to explore on another conversation with this topic. But let's finish with any words of wisdom to for people who are obviously they're hitting the grounds for 2017. Any words of wisdom of what should their vision be for 2017 if they really want to excel in their business?
Well, the whether it's retail business, online, or business in general, it's getting more, I'll say commercialized is not the right word. It's getting more automatic.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a blog post recently as far as how service in 2017 might be the best versus
Right.
how it was years ago. But there's so many automated features. What how many times you go to a store of some type and there's more people manning these self-serve lines than there are on the regular cash out lines.
Mm-hmm.
You go on sites and everything is automated. Amazon now is able to, based upon your past purchases and your search, they can almost guess what you are going to buy next, and they can ship
Right.
that out to you, and it goes much on from that. If we're going to focus on the latest gadget to help us provide service to our customers, that may be fine for the short term. That may be fine to get that quick hit. But I always try going back to thinking about the best service experience that you've ever received. In my case, it was when I went on my honeymoon to Walt Disney World. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're fantastic, as you know that.
Right.
One of the things that we were there for 7, 8 days, and every time we came back to the hotel room after a long day out at the parks, there was something new in my room. As an example, the first day we came back, there was a big 8 by 10, 11 by 14 photo of Mickey and Minnie right in front of the Magic Kingdom saying, congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. DiGioia. Welcome to Walt Disney World. That's nice. Next day we come back, there's a bottle of champagne, 2 glasses. Next day we come back, there is a small mirror with 7 strawberries all decked out in tuxedos with the dark and white chocolate on there, and a statue of Snow White. So Snow
Wow.
White and the 7 dwarfs. Every time we came back to the room, there was something special in there. Now you don't think of how that made me feel. It made me feel fantastic. I couldn't wait to come back to the room. Well, as a newlywed, of course, that's not a bad thing in general. And being out at the parks all day, probably shouldn't have said that. But when you can make your customers anticipate how they're going to feel, when they can 20 some odd years later, they can still relay a topic of great service, of a great experience. That's when you know you've gone above and beyond. And
Yeah.
you don't need to do what Disney does or what, great companies like the Four Seasons or anybody else. You just need to find a way of put yourself in the shoes of the customer. I always say, do what's in the best interest of the customer. Every
Mm-hmm.
meeting that you have, the meeting should end. How does this affect the customers? Every time you try something new, how does that affect the cut? If it affects them in a positive way, great. If it affects them in a negative way or in a neutral way, well, then maybe that may not be the best thing. We focus so much on generating revenue or lowering costs. How will that affect the customer? Because that is who is paying your bills every day. That is who is paying us.
Right.
The boss doesn't pay us. The customers pay us. And
Right.
once we lose track of that, there's a good chance we're going to lose track of a lot of other things. So that's what I would say. Always focus on what's in the best interest of the customer, and you'll be fine.
That's great. And it's excellent way to think about, as you're leading the customer experience, think about that, because it is very true. Something I heard the other day, that especially if you're working in a hotel, or think about it from a restaurant perspective, you're the first person that greets people. Your job is not to check people in. Your job is to create loyalty in those experiences, those moments, those 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes with a customer. I think it gets so underestimated nowadays, because we have become automated. We have become about, we're not really, we need to bring, what I say about hospitality is the people's business, both on the customer side and the people side. But
Mhm.
understanding that is
Sure.
so important, because so many of us are focused on that one transaction. But remember the loyalty impact of it, which we'll talk about it later on, probably in months to come, about loyalty, is that your job is to create loyalty. That's your number one priority. As Steve alluded to, is that you're focusing on the customer. This is in your best interest. And I'll finish with this quote by Peter Drucker. Kind of a funny story is that he was giving a session about, um, these entrepreneurs were trying to open up new businesses, and their mindset was really fixated on profits. They were thinking, well, I'm going to open up a business, I'm going to make a lot of money, so forth and so on. And he said, the if this is your focus, then you don't really understand business.
Mhm.
And what he was saying there is that your job, if you're going to open up a business, if you're going to have a business, is to create and keep a customer. And beautifully said. And I think so many of us are forgetting that, because it is about the customer. Without the customer, there's just no other things that can really help the oxygen of your business each and every day. So be thinking
Sure.
about that. So,
For sure.
um, Steve, thank you so much for our dialogue conversation. We're going to be doing this throughout the year, and get more of your engagement and feedback on some of the things that you guys want to see with customer service and hospitality, because I think there's great things in our industry. Our industries are coming back,
Mhm.
and there's some great learning opportunities if you think about what Steve and I can bring to the table. Each one of us, you can contact each one of us on speaking engagement or interviews and podcasts and other ideas for your business to really take your 2017 to the next level. Because when you do 2017 right, then 2018 is looking brighter. Right, Steve?
Without a doubt. You start with your foundation, which is your customer, and everything else goes from that point on.
Good deal. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you on the next video.
Thank you.
Take care.